You could just start by telling me a little bit about your work at Wayne State University and the research that you do. I know you kind of told me a little bit about it over the phone. What does that work look like here at the university?
So, when there's a violent event in the world, at the Center for Peace and Conflict Studies, what we want to do is to conduct research to survey hundreds, sometimes thousands of people as soon as humanly possible after that event occurs to understand what's going in the minds of everyone who's witnessing or observing or reading about that event, because that's going to give us clues into how we think and feel and respond to violence. And how much of that do we internalize? Are people learning something about it without necessarily realizing it, especially over time as these acts of violence seem to be piling up? Is there a normalization process? Are people getting ideas that they may not have had before about how to solve problems in the world? So that's what we try to study. And we've been doing this for years. And I've been studying mass shootings for almost 10 years now, and all kinds of other forms of violence, whether it's political violence or international war, because as psychologists, we think that big events in society have very small but profound beginnings in the mind, and something as simple as frustration, but experienced at a massive level, and that people can't quite put words into or put into words, is given shape by other people and given shape by society and given pathways to be expressed by people around them and what they read and encounter.
It's so interesting that you say that too. And you were talking about over the phone the assassination of the United Healthcare CEO. Even the reaction to that, I think, was very interesting because it was very far on this side and very far on that side. So that'd be something very interesting to see what that research and work looks like on you guys' end. And for people who, like I was saying, I feel like so many things happen in the course of the year that people forget how frequently we are seeing things like this. Can you talk a little bit about how common or uncommon it is that we're seeing political violence in our day and age?
I think the most striking tell is if you've been around a while, 10, 15 years ago, if there was a mass shooting, it was in the news for weeks and months, unpacking every detail, every horrific detail, every story. Well, now it's out of the news cycle in a matter of days. That's the tell, is that it's that people not only do they process it more quickly, but people have less to process about it because it's already been processed so many times before. And so what gets focused on now is what makes this situation unique or different. And in a way, that kind of blinds us to the idea that no, actually, these are all very similar, if not exactly the same. The details keep changing, but the behaviors over and over are the same. And as psychologists, just look at behavior. Just look at behavior. That's all you need to look at. Everything else is, I don't want to say a distraction, but it can confuse us to what's really going on.
Was it shocking to you when you heard the news or saw the headlines of what was happening in Minnesota this weekend?
I think, like a lot of people, I'm shocked as a human, but as a member of society, is it really that shocking? Or do you get that feeling of, oh no, not again? And of course we want to learn about it. Of course we want it to stop, and we grieve for the people who are affected and their family and their friends. And even someone who's deeply involved in it, actively involved in it, there is this sense of helplessness that we can't do anything for them, we can't do anything about it, and it's going to happen again. And with the number of people who are dying every year in this country with gun violence in the tens of thousands, just looking at the numbers as a researcher, knowing that this is going to continue, and it might even continue to increase. I mean, you're looking at hundreds of thousands of deaths over a 10-year span, hundreds of thousands. What do we do about that?
I know in recent years we've obviously seen the assassination attempt on President Trump. We've seen the kidnapping plot for Governor Whitmer. There was a mass shooting at a baseball game of a state or a U.S. senator, I believe, Stephen Scalise. When you think about the mass total of all of these things, is there anything in your research that you're finding is fanning the flames of this kind of behavior?
Yes, so we look at people and we look at situations, and frustration, conflict, dismay, this is all part of life. Hopelessness is part of life. Not knowing how to move forward in a complex world is part of life. That does not cause shootings. That does not cause political violence. That might energize it, but it's energy potential. What gives that form and shape and direction are the narratives that are coming down from on high. And that can be media narratives, that can be public figures, respected individuals, that can be the language that gets used. It could also be the prior events, because mass shootings, for example, they're contagious. When there's a mass shooting event, the first thing we start paying attention to, it's almost like a clock ticking. Okay, is another one going to happen shortly afterwards? And and so people pay attention to violence, and whether they consciously realize it, people learn from that. They pick up on that. Like here in Michigan, the Oxford High School shooting tragedy, that was followed by an unprecedented number of copycat threats by high schoolers, not just in Michigan, but really around the country. And the same happens after other shootings, like in Texas, after in Uvalde. And so this is something that we're learning from each other. This is something that we're learning from the world around us and the narratives that are coming down to us. And of course, the vast majority, hundreds of thousands, millions of people, we interpret it in one way, but some of us interpret it slightly differently. Some people take it as a signal of what I can do about my motivations that I don't know what else to do with. And that's when tragedy can strike.
Is it ever scary to you as someone who looks over all this data and the psychology behind a lot of these incidents? Is it ever scary to you to think that there's nothing that the average person can really do to quell, or is there something that people can be doing to kind of slow this down?
Yeah. You're absolutely right. It is on all of us to do something. And what we can each individually do is very simple. We don't accept this as normal. We don't let it normalize. Be shocked every time. Let yourself be shocked, even if you're not shocked. Allow yourself to be shocked and communicate that shock. Point out that this is not normal. This is not okay. And if that happens at a large enough scale, and also from our leaders, and that continues to happen, it sets the tone that this is not a behavior that achieves goals. And also it's important that when these events do happen, and they will, and they'll continue to happen for a long time, every time it does happen, be cautious about people who celebrate that. Those people, even if it's just an offhand comment, what does that say about that person and what they're really communicating, and maybe what they even really want? And should those persons be in positions of leadership? Should those persons be in positions of respect in our society? And if they are, fine. But that's the society we're going to be in, and we're going to get what follows from that.
I can't think of anything else, Pontus. Anything else you want to add? Think I might have missed? Think people should know or we should look into for this story?
The only thing I can think of is that talking about it's a double-edged sword, right? Because on the one hand, we have to learn from it. We have to communicate. We have to share what we think. We have to share our knowledge that we have. On the other hand, every time we pay attention to it, it lends it a little bit more power. And that might communicate the wrong message to the wrong person at the wrong time.